Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We will bring the committee of the whole meeting for April the 27th to order. Just take a moment to acknowledge that the meeting is being held on the traditional territory of our friends and our neighbors and our Treaty 8 partners of the Fort Nelson First Nation, as well as the Prophet River First Nation. We recognize our treaty, we recognize the rights within that treaty, and we also recognize the enduring presence of the Métis people within our region. Please be advised that this afternoon's meeting is available to the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. Is there any additions from staff? Council? No. This is the opportunity for the public. If anybody would like to get up and take a couple of minutes to talk about anything that's on the agenda. Anybody online? No? Anybody in the gallery? Okay. Everybody's okay with the agenda the way it is? It's pretty full today. Okay, the first order of business is a delegation from Deloitte, who's doing our economic diversity strategy. And I do believe we've got Christopher and Jamie on the line, or at least Christopher's here. Christopher, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And Jamie is just logging on now, so might just give him a brief moment. I know he's trying to access the link, but I'll share my screen with our presentation. I believe that should be appearing correctly now. Okay. Well, I don't want to necessarily keep everyone waiting, so I'll maybe just start out and Jamie can drop in when he's able to. But thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council, for taking the time to hear our presentation about the economic diversification strategy. We're really excited to have delivered the final document to City Administration about 2 weeks ago. We had a lot of back and forth in terms of refining some of the action items that came along with it, making sure that they were realistic for staff to sort of take and move with, and also realistic given some of the constraints the municipality faces. So with no further ado, I think I'll maybe just jump right in. So obviously, I don't necessarily need to belabor the reasons why an economic diversification strategy was pursued by the municipality. Obviously, there are a number of structural challenges the community has been facing. Of course, and I'll get into this in a moment, there's been a historical reliance on the natural resource industry, both from an energy perspective, from a forestry perspective, and there are some ongoing challenges in the sector. But there are obviously also infrastructural limitations that are preventing the community from really accessing opportunities. So one of the things we wanted to state right off the bat, and I know this question came up the last time we came to council, is that the recommendations in the strategy, while they focus on diversification into a number of different areas, are not a retreat from the Northern Rockies traditional sectors. It's not a retreat from forestry. It's not a retreat from energy. But it asks the question, what can the municipality do in the medium term in terms of accessing new economic opportunities? And also, what can the municipality do in the medium term to ensure that some of those key sectors, those primary sectors the community has depended on for so long, can be accessed in the future, right? How do we resolve some of those infrastructure challenges? How do we resolve some of the advocacy challenges, for instance, that the community has had with, say, the province or other orders of government? It's really focused on setting up the community for success and understanding what it can move on in the near future. Obviously, we did a bunch of research as a part of this project, but that also involved communicating with members of the community. So we did a number of interviews, both when Jamie and I visited the community on 2 different occasions, talking with local stakeholders. But we also did a number of online interviews with people that were maybe further afield in the region or inaccessible at the time we were around, to really gain local insights and understand from different perspectives what they saw as opportunities, what they saw as some of the key limitations. We did 4 industry workshops when we were in the community the first time, which were very insightful and really provoking debate around some of the ideas that we brought up, and also helping to challenge some of the research and the numbers that we had brought to them. We conducted a luncheon with the chamber, which is the photograph on the left side of the screen there, where we also were able to get a bunch of business community feedback, which is very useful. And as mentioned, we've come to council twice. The first time discussing what some of the visions and aspirations for the strategy were going to be. And the second time really focusing on how do we move from ideas to action and validating some of the ideas that have come up to date. And like I mentioned as well, just off the top, we've had this iterative refinement with administration to make sure that, while we're used to putting together these plans for municipalities, and we've worked with a number of different municipalities in northern BC as well in particular, every community is a little bit different. There are different constraints that we might not be able to see. And so it's really useful to be able to talk to staff. And so I know Lisa, Hillary, and Krista, we've had a lot of conversations. They've been really helpful for helping to parse that out. Just a quick overview of the timeline. I know we're right at the end, but we started back in early summer in June, defining what we want to achieve with the project, setting up some of those relationships with key stakeholders in the community. Near the end of the summer, we were able to move full force into our research and consultation phase, some of the pieces that I already described. Doing our background review, what studies has the municipality already commissioned? What data do we have access to, and what might be publicly available to help fill in the gaps where they existed? We looked very heavily at the community's investment readiness and determining, where might investors run into to challenges when they actually try to move capital into the community, and which of those can be acted upon in sort of the short and medium term, and which might be more of a long-term commitment. As mentioned, we had some of our community engagement, which was very fruitful in helping to validate that and make sure that the strategy was reflective of the people that were actually going to be implementing it and affected by it. Packaged all that together, we're able to move into some of the opportunities and defining those with our SOAR assessment, understanding, what are the strengths, what are the opportunities, what are the aspirations, risks, and results, one of our key frameworks that we like to use. And then we came back to council with that draft set of priorities for the strategy, which we had a lot of good conversation on, and some of the adjustments from that conversation I think you will have seen probably reflected in the strategy document that you've read. And now we're sort of moving into that final stage and saying, we've gone through this research and consultation exercise. We think we understand the community fairly well, and we're looking hopefully for endorsement of the strategy with this final presentation. Just to recap a few of the interesting findings to set up the recommendations we made. Obviously, because of some of the sectoral challenges the community has undergone in the last while, there has been some mild population decline. So, back in 2020, the population was about 4,000 people, closer to 4,100. Declined in around 2025 to just under 4,000. Some of the projections show a slow but steady decline. And partly that's because BC stats projections are reflective of expectations around industry output, industry productivity. If the economy is not doing well, there aren't going to necessarily be a lot of people around to live in a community. So that's the current challenge. So this negative trend is not irreversible. It's something that with targeted action, we can do something about. A number of other stats that are worth highlighting. We have information on industry performance, what industries are earning revenue. Unfortunately, when we pulled this, it was back in 2022 is the most recent available. But you can see, the natural resource sector has been really critical to the economy, accounting for 40% of all revenues in the community, which is quite significant, and explains some of the challenges that have been happening to date and the need for diversification. And then, of course, there are a number of structural limitations, which I've already spoken a little bit to, but, limited reliability around rail, air service has been, air access has been a key challenge. Energy access, not being connected to the main grid and having to rely on ulterior means in different moments. These all constrain investor confidence, and there's some of the pieces that we want to make sure are addressed through the strategy. And, when I mentioned we did that engagement, some of the things that really came out from that we learned was, people are interested in economic diversification. Sometimes you get into a community that's been heavily reliant, say, on forestry, and a lot of people just want to ask about how you get the mill restarted. But that wasn't necessarily the case here. People said, we do value the core industries that the Northern Rockies is based around, but they were interested in other opportunities. Some that came out were around food production, really expanding outdoor tourism, and then how the Northern Rockies can become a bit more of a logistics center, especially focused around Fort Nelson. And there was also a lot of talk around how can the community strengthen its collaboration, both with First Nations, for instance, but also with other levels of government. And so we have a number of recommendations that we've integrated that look for different ways to frame that relationship, different ways to escalate issues, and different ways to advocate on behalf of the community that we think might be more tactile or opportunities to try. And I presented the last time that we came to council our strategic framework, and essentially the way we tend to lay these strategies out, we state a winning aspiration up front, and that's essentially the end state that we want a community to meet. So in this case, the end state, once the strategy has been implemented, fully delivered upon, we're hoping that the Northern Rockies can be positioned as a strategic northern gateway that builds economic resilience, that revitalizes industry and the community. And to achieve that, we define our strategic priorities, these 5 bullets here, that are sort of different components that all feed into achieving that same goal. So the first being, expanding local food production, accessing opportunities in agriculture, improving local food security, those sorts of things. The second is really focused around, developing the tourism profile. So really leveraging the Northern Rockies natural assets and focusing on high value, outdoor recreational tourism and growing that market. The third, really understanding the Northern Rockies as a potential northern logistics hub. There's always a lot of focus on how to supply south, how to supply to the coast. But one thing that we've really thought a little bit differently for the Northern Rockies and Fort Nelson in particular, like I mentioned, is that there's a lot of lacking attention going north, a lot of lacking attention as to how you supply communities like Whitehorse, how you supply communities more broadly in the Yukon and Northwest Territories, and especially with some of the defense sector build out that's happening north and into the Arctic. Focusing on being a part of that is very useful. The fourth, really focusing on transportation infrastructure. So I mentioned that lacking access to rail has obviously been an impediment to investment in recent years, been an impediment to industrial growth more broadly. And so there are a number of recommendations over how the community could seek to expand its influence over transportation infrastructure locally. Obviously, we recognize that the municipality can't just buy a rail line and upgrade it and refurbish all the servicing, but there are some potential interventions that could be made. And then strengthening readiness and partnerships is really around making sure that the Northern Rockies is well connected when it comes to the broader economic development ecosystem. So making sure that there are the right connections already in place so that a local business that maybe needs financing or advice can be easily connected to other economic development service providers. Making sure that the right advocacy coalitions are in place to move on certain issues of, say, provincial or federal concern, these sorts of things. So these priorities together aim to help the Northern Rockies achieve that end state goal. And we've attached to the agenda, I believe, and we've already delivered it. But we bookended the strategy with an implementation plan. There's 26 individual actions, complete with a description of what they aim to achieve, some of the implementation steps required, how you would measure success in each case, and whether there's funding available from a third party to help achieve that action. So we've included this as sort of a checkbox list that municipal administration can move ahead with. It aims to make it a little bit simpler to understand, and this is where our contacts within the municipality were really useful in helping to validate our understanding of how the Northern Rockies can move on these issues and how we can understand success. It's a short presentation, short but sweet. Jamie, I see you've joined. Did you have any additional comments to make? I don't know when you popped in.
No, I've been here since almost the beginning, just was not showing as a presenter, but no, I think you did a great job. It's always nice as a manager to realize how little you're needed. So, it's all good.
Perfect. Well, with that, I think maybe we'll just open it back up to council for comments, questions around the strategy. I'm always curious. There's that trepidation. We feel good about it. We've had a lot of conversations with the administration, but always curious to hear thoughts back on it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate the presentation and appreciate the work that you guys have done on this. I appreciate that you were able to get some comments in there around the fact that we haven't given up on our traditional industries here. I thought the first draft of the presentation, or the first draft of the plan did that. That's why I asked the question, have we given up? But yeah, recognizing that this is a short and medium term approach until hopefully, that we see that in the future. And not only does that take over, but these 5 strategic items that you've got in here, they really are not just short term, they can be long term. And once they get rooted in this community, I think some of these ideas can be, really helpful to this community going forward. The second thing I appreciate that you put in there was the comments around the work that the Resource Coalition did on the rail. So I see in the rail section there that you added a few things in there, particularly around the idea of getting the communities together to sort of look at the overall framework of rail and how we might look at governance of rail in the future. So and then obviously what comes from that is the lobby effort that goes forward. Last thing I want to say is that I really like the way you laid out the actions, right? So there's objectives there. The objectives are clearly defined. There's action items there. And, I found myself, I didn't get a chance to read all 26 of the detailed pages because I found myself every time I got looking into one and looking at the action items, I found myself falling into it and, how could I do that? How could I do that? And, who could we partner with to get that happen? I ended up not getting them all read. But that tells me that, that it was a great job because it got my imagination going with respect to some of the economic opportunities that we have. So those are my thoughts. I thought it's well done, and I'll turn it over to the rest of council if anybody has any comments or questions. Danny first, please, Councillor Souls.
Well, I'd like also to express my appreciation for the angle that you've taken on it. In the final draft, it does capture a lot of what I see. I think that the addition of any or all of these as a focus, if we can get some of them rolling or get all of them rolling over time, they'll never disappear. They really are part of the long-term needs that we have. When you see a completely resource dependent community, you know that there is always the risk of the pendulum in the markets or pendulum in supply and demand and various things like that. But every person that I know likes to eat at least once a day. And so food production and those of us who have been involved in that, I think that there's a lot that we've done groundwork on that can show that there's real potential. It's not just a pie in the sky idea. And so I think that including things like that, we've known for a long time of how valuable and awesome our natural resource world, our natural environment world is as far as tourism and so on. So the idea is not new, but the focus, when you start bringing the ability to focus on a larger group of people into a plan like that, you get better plans. Better plans happen when it's not driven by just an individual. So anyway, I appreciate overall I very much enjoy this, and I'm ready to say good job.
Thank you, Councillor Souls. Councillor Roper, please.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this great report. Yeah, I feel like it really is comprehensive and has some really good actionable things. There's so many things that we don't have control of, like the rail line. And this has a clear plan so that we can start taking more steps to get to that point where we do have a little bit more control over that infrastructure. I think it's so important. I also think there are other kinds of agriculture that could be applied to this plan as well. It doesn't just have to be food production. It could be non-edible agriculture, all kinds of horticulture. So I think this plan relates to more than just what's in it. It's open for other interpretations as well.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Anybody else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Goering, please.
Yeah. I was really, really impressed with the uniqueness of the opportunities that you have laid out before us. it wasn't just the traditional, you really looked outside of the traditional resource development and looked at what we had and how to make the best use of what's here. So I really, really appreciated that. And I'm really intrigued with the Northern Logistics Hub. And if I were to run again, that would be something that I would be really interested in pursuing. So yeah. And then just on a personal note, I have to do a presentation at the high school on Thursday. And part of it is, what do you see economic development moving forward? And I'm going like, oh, yay, I know where I'm going to get some positive information so it isn't doom and gloom. So yes, I really appreciate the timeliness of this report. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Staff, Krista, did you want to wrap up?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's great to hear that the project has gone well and is appreciated, and that we haven't totally missed a mark, because sometimes you just never quite know. So I think we'll just take, if there are any other comments, otherwise we'll probably bring this back to Council for more of a stamp of approval and what our next steps are at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Chris and Jamie, for coming and presenting this to us today, and all of the work that you've done since last summer. I think you did an amazing job. We'll see. I don't believe that this will sit on a shelf like some other plans end up doing. I think there's a lot of really good ideas there that staff and council can get into. I certainly will get into the rest of the action plans that you've got there, or pages, and really get a feel for what I might be able to do to help out. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you
so much, Council.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, the second item, 5.2 on this agenda is the Northern Energy Dialogues. So a community conversation. Welcome. So if you could just introduce yourselves in the project, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right, huge appreciation for being here. Thanks, Mayor and Council. I'm Sinead Earley. I'm an associate professor at UNBC in Prince George. I'm very excited to talk to you about a very exciting research project that I'm one of the leads on about community energy in Northern British Columbia. Really quickly, I'll let Sarah introduce herself.
I'm Sarah Chitzas. I'm a PhD student at UVic, and I'm working on the Northern Regional Energy Dialogues with Sinead. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thanks. Yeah, it's really wonderful to be in Fort Nelson. I was here when I was 19 years old, but that feels like ages ago now. So I want to provide the details of the work that we have in front of us on this research project, but also really keen to hear from you folks. If you have questions about the project or what we're going to be up to while we're here in the region this week, but also the long-term research plan. So it's a 5-year project, and I think there's really a great opportunity to actually spend more time in the region if we're welcomed to kind of really dig into things. So there's 2 parts I want to speak to quite quickly. I'm really keen to hear from you folks. So we're actually at the back end of the first year of our project, which was called Northern Regional Energy Dialogues. So we've moved kind of through year 1 of that. And we're sitting right in front of the latter years, which is called Power for People. That's phase 2 of the project, which is called Power for People, Community Energy in Northern British Columbia. Just really quickly, this is federal funding that we're working with. It's a Canada First Research Excellence Fund. The total of that is $86 million. That's housed largely within UVic. So I'm working very closely with other lead researchers at UVic. This is a UNBC UVic partnership. And that's under the banner of this really big, exciting project called Accelerating Community Energy Transformation. But so that first piece, so this Northern Regional Energy Dialogues, I've been pretty busy. I've been traveling across Northern British Columbia, as have other members of our team. It really is just a listening exercise. So the point of that first year is to sit down with communities, give them an opportunity to identify what energy looks like in their communities. It's been a listening exercise, what local energy priorities are, what barriers exist, capacity challenges, pathways for energy solutions. So we, Williams Lake, spent a lot of time in the Northwest, so Kitimat, Prince Rupert, the Upper Skeena region. A bit more recently, we've been in Fort Nelson. I also spent time in Farmington. I'm really excited to round off that work here in the region. So huge appreciation to Hillary Shepard and Shayna Dolan, who have set out a pretty amazing itinerary for us this week. We're going to be spending time in Muncho Lake, Toad River, here in Fort Nelson, and having some hopefully some community scale conversation, but also having some one-on-one conversations with folks that are really keen to talk about energy issues for the region. And just quickly, we've also, so there's those community level conversations, and we've also been fostering or trying to foster these sort of regional workshops. So really trying to tackle some of these challenges at the regional scale, but that's not a new thing for you folks up here. That's really what you do. I'll list, some of the general findings that we found across the region through that first year. But that's not to say that those are the challenges that we're going to hear about in the next week while we're here. At least it's the key point is that these key challenges they've really influenced the whole research program. So this first year has really fed into the development of what we're going to be up to for the next 2 to 4 years. Key points, concerns over the reliability, sustainability, and environmental impacts of current energy sources. Communities, one of the things we heard very strongly, communities are seeking a greater agency in what their energy systems look like. Energy independence or energy sovereignty is coming up a lot more. Really interesting that great to hear about the presentation just before us, thinking about innovative energy systems as very central to regional economic planning. I think that's a question or a piece that we could dig into in a major way in the Northern Rockies region that I'm pretty excited about. Capacity challenges are key if we're talking about local or municipal staff capacity, but we can talk about capacity kind of writ broad. But they're really key barriers to clean energy development. We've heard a lot about energy and food solutions as being very integrated. So trying to, and also energy and forestry solutions being very integrated, bioenergy opportunities. Also thinking about wildfire mitigation, kind of feeding into some innovative conversations around bioenergy, for instance. The role of education and research institutions needs to be better understood. So part of this work going forward that I'm leading is thinking about the role of UNBC, but also the regional colleges. Some really great conversations with Northern Lights College, for instance, in terms of being proactive, in terms of responding to economic and environmental changes, in terms of creating a new labor force, but also being aspirational, right? In terms of economic planning, for instance, what do these regions want to see? Really interesting to hear about, some of the diversity of options in front of you in the presentation, or in front of us, tourism being one of them. And just also the last point in terms of common themes, deep desire for community and regional collaboration. So one of the things I'm going to speak about NorthCan, which is another organization I've been heavily involved in. Part of the sort of formation or the drive for that network was that a lot of Northern communities feel isolated. And that if there's a lot of sort of sharing of knowledge and sort of collaboration across some of these rural, remote, and Indigenous communities can actually help us move the mark on some of these goals that are actually shared between communities. So that's the first phase of research. And we're really, really keen to hear from folks this week in terms of that, just do that very basic listening exercise. what does energy look like for the region, and what's the vision for future energy system. In terms of the research going forward, and this is where I think there is, we're not just here to listen this week. I think there's a lot of opportunity for a strengthened and sort of ongoing relationship between UNBC and the regional municipality. And it's a pretty ambitious research program. It really is kind of parsed out into two major components. One is capacity development, and the other is policy and planning. And really the overarching goal is to try and advance community energy transition in rural and remote northern British Columbia. So I'm happy to speak to some of the more detailed components of that research going forward. But I think I'm more keen to hear from you folks. But the sort of final point I do want to make before we have some questions or discussion is, as I said, to speak a bit more about NorthCan, which is the Northern BC Climate Action Network. So this is an organization that I've been involved with since its inception in 2023, and that precedes this research project. And so we're working also very closely with the Community Energy Association on all of this work. One of those key leads within the CEA is Rob Van Edgecombe, who's also been very central to NorthCan. It's a multi-sector network. It's pan-regional. It brings folks together across northern British Columbia. And it is sort of trying to facilitate that sort of shared ambition or shared information with some of these northern communities that the sense of isolation is actually pulling people together. And I also want to reference that Hilary Shepherd has actually been very central to the development of NorthCan itself from the beginning. She's chaired some of our meetings. And so I think it's really exciting to think about how this triad might come together to build out a community energy project in the Northern Rockies region, thinking about support from NorthCan, as well as this research project, and thinking about where the regional municipality wants to go in terms of energy. So I think I'll leave it at that. And we can use this space. I'm very happy to field questions about the research itself, more about myself and the research team, but also very keen to hear your thoughts on some of those key components of what we're here to hear about. So what are some of the major energy issues in the region? What are some of the major energy opportunities that you see in the region? So thanks again. And really keen to hear from folks this week, as well as Mayor and Council here this evening.
Thank you, Sinead. Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, have you got any questions? Comments? Councillor Souls.
I really like listening to you talk. I think of the something that I've known. I'm a very long time resident in this area. We are surrounded by layers of natural energy, many layers. That's as abnormal in the world to have as many layers of energy around us as we do have right now. And yet there's barriers to almost every single one when looked at individually. So I'll give an example, and you I believe touched on it, and we've worked for a long time. Historically I was in the forest industry, and I recognize that there's a massive forest around us, and I kind of tongue in cheek, I kind of hate it, but I still use it when I go to UBCM, or I was just down at municipal finance and earlier than that at the Covey gatherings. And we're the only part of the province where you can burn 3 million hectares of forest and not even miss it in a province that has a deficiency of wood for keeping its forest industry alive. Anyway, a barrier to ours working has always been, or continues to be, the fact that the residual component of any harvesting that would be done has no home. And, in a sense, just follow me for a second. I'll do a really quick comparison. I think of how in the world of residual wood, pellets is a normal component, a normal product that's manufactured and so on. But when you look at the pellet trail in the world, you find that pellets Imagine putting pellets on a train in Fort Nelson and they travel all the way to the ocean and then they get put into a bin and then they get put into a ship and they go across the ocean and then they end up on another train to go to another bin at the end of the rail line. And then we talk about it being green energy. I think, yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, I think that there are some emerging technologies, and this is one of the things that I wanted to mention as part of what I see as going forward. When you look at energy power, electricity power, and other forms of energy, we're seeing technology that's making recovery of energy much more efficient. So it becomes much more scalable. Like even when I was a young person and you read about the various nuclear plants in the world, I never thought I'd see the day when you have the discussion about small scale modular nuclear power facilities, which is now being discussed all over in northern communities in Canada, especially the larger ones. And so in our case here, one of the things that we know of companies, we're actually talking to ones that are interested in wood or bio, whether it's wood or other bio residuals that can go and be turned into fuel. And I think the beauty of that is that the fuel doesn't have to be put into a pipeline and piped from here to Timbuktu in order to find an end user, because you actually are creating a fuel that actually goes into gas tanks or diesel tanks or aircraft tanks that is actually locally produced. And I think that is now, of course, we're not talking about the economics of it right now, but the idea of that is if we find something along that line, it will enable a small scale forest industry also to be there, because as it stands, the barrier is all the residual. One of the barriers is the residual. And just one other, touching on the railway and its role in the energy world. I think that it's fascinating that we have a railway that still operates, but we pretend like it's not there because we can't seem to attract the old type of industry that was historically there. I think though that it's a very good illustrator of one of the barriers that we face. And one of the barriers you face is that there's multiple stories. There's a story from CN that has one rationale. There's a story from the provincial government that has a different story. There's a story from the people who operate the rail, whom I know quite a few of the people, and they tell a different story. And so we're dealing with, as far as energy or ideas, rolling out ideas that are good for our community, it's absolutely crucial that we do come together at the table, which is why I like what you're doing, because it's crucial to come up the table so that we're telling the same story. That's when we can start building something that works. I have lots more to say. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk this week sometime.
Anybody else?
Just briefly, I was looking over your questions and I have lots of answers, but it's a short time. So, the one thing that I guess I would like for you to take away from me at this point in time, that I'm really concerned that there is one solution that's going to work across the province. And it's not going to, electric cars aren't working here right now. We have pictures this winter of the cars that had to be towed back down the highway because they couldn't get charged, So decisions that are being made out provincially or federally that have a germ of a good idea, but don't work and in other parts of the country or the province. And that is really constricting for us and for other communities as well. So yeah, that's what I have lots to share, but if you could just take that away, that there isn't a one solution that's going to fit for every community. And I really appreciate that you're taking the time to be here tonight and that you're going up the highway and listening to the folks up there. So thank you.
Yeah, just to note on that really quickly. So I don't know if this back and forth is okay, but this is sort of the impetus behind NorthCan as well, right? It's just that policy making and sort of policy objectives, where political representation and power is held in Southern British Columbia, is not working for Northern communities. And so we need some sort of forum through which to come to some sort of shared idea of what we want to see. And I'll also note that this is also going to what the conversation looks like here is going to look very different than what it looks like in Kitimat or in Atlin, is another community we're in. So this is the intention, and this is why I'm pretty very appreciative to be involved in this project, is that we're able to partner formally with communities and really do the work over a long period of time, but to start with those community level conversations. But yeah, it's speaking back to this sort of policy injustice that we see across the province, where that political policy making power is held in the South, and those, especially around environment and climate, is just not working for Northern communities. So we have some of the folks on our team are public policy folks, and they do great work. And so I think we're going to be able to document what needs to be the representative needs for Northern British Columbia through this project in a pretty major way.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, because it's just so frustrating to see resources being allocated throughout the North that don't work. And that's real money that's now not working and could be used for other solutions. So I find that to be extremely frustrating too. So thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to kick in a little bit too. And, the title jumped out at me as Accelerating Community Energy Transformation. And it goes along with what Councillor Stoll says with all of the different layers of energy opportunity that we have here, and we can't take advantage of it. Whether it's natural gas being used for heating, whether it's being used for electrical generation, whether it's geothermal in the project that the nation is trying to get off the ground, whether it's hydro. As a young child, I was here when BC Hydro was having a look at the Liard River and the potential for damming the Liard River, and much long before Site C was a twinkling in their eye, or maybe at the same time, the opportunities for bioenergy. There are so many layers here, and what are we doing? We're burning natural gas to make electricity. For us, that's fine. We've got electricity. We're not on the grid, and the province will tell you they're not going to put us on the grid. We're attached to the Alberta grid, right? And what's up with that? We're generating 70, whatever the heck it is, and we're using 12. The rest of it's going down. We're selling it to Alberta, right? And so we're using an energy source to create an energy source, and except for our own use, what are we getting out of it? We're not using it for any industry. There's capacity there that we could be using for industry in this region. And I'm glad you said that there's a policy arm of what you're doing, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some recognition by the policy drivers in this province that we're not being treated equally. We're just left up there, and but we're going to get you off of diesel fuel, and we're going to get you off of off of natural gas, which is what's been powering us for forever here. And so I'm hoping that there will be some neutral ground here, that we'll be able to get through this process, that the research that you're doing, that, it won't be just a matter of, we're going to get you off of diesel fuel and natural gas, that there will actually be some policy discussion that works in our favor, because we are the furthest community from Victoria in this province, and it feels like it. Councillor Andrews, you have anything?
I like the emphasis on your capacity development. I think the longevity of any plan, you got to have the capacity for it. And Councillor Souls, everyone's mentioned the amount of energy in our area. If we had the trained capacity to deal with that energy, we wouldn't really need to be having this conversation. So I think to future-proof it all, that's really important, and I like seeing it.
Councillor Roper, please. Last word.
Yeah, you betcha. And I think our region requires a very unique solution to energy, because we're in a very unique part of the world. And, it seems they do these mega projects. You've got Site C, we can't get on that grid. We're producing energy here. We can't get it to our up-highway communities. Toad River's on diesel. Muncho's generating their own while we're selling to Alberta. Mm-hmm. So lots of challenges, but just as many opportunities to find solutions. So, yeah, I look forward to the work ahead for sure.
So thank you very much for coming. There is an opportunity to fill out these questions online. Did I read that? Yeah, because I think they're good questions and I think we probably all have lots to say. Yeah. What?
Yeah, just to note that there is, I think, is it a QR code? Or I think we might have a link to the online.
I think there's
Yeah.
a link there.
So please, if you have more to say, the more that you say will shape what we do. Like really trying for this research project to be place-based and responsive. So yeah, if you have the time to do that, would be much appreciated.
Yeah. And we may have a very unique perspective because we're not on the grid, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to working with you. Did I lose my agenda? No, there it is. Okay, that brings us to 5.3, which is a presentation by Urban Matters on the Community Health Plan Steering Committee, the year in review. Julianne's here, I think.
Hello.
Hi, Julianne. Hi. The floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I believe I've met most of you, but my name is Julianne Kucheran. I'm a community planning consultant with Urban Systems and Urban Matters, and I'm calling in from the traditional territory of the Lheidli First Nation, so based in Prince George, and work out of our Prince George office. And I was up in Fort St. John, up in the Northeast for 6 years prior to my 3 years here. So I'm super pleased to be able to continue to support the Northeast from here. So I think what I'll do is share my screen because I have a lovely PowerPoint presentation. So let's see if I can do that. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so yes, as you had mentioned, this will be an opportunity to review some of the great work that has gone on over the past year. And then we'll kind of look at what went well, what was maybe tricky, and then what we're planning on for this next year. And so we would have done a very similar presentation last year, so you might remember that as well. I'll introduce a little bit more about Urban Matters, just to remind you of how we work alongside our sister company, Urban Systems, give a bit of a recap on the Community Health Plan Steering Committee and the Community Health Plan and how that got all started in 2017. And then, like I said, I'll just highlight some of the great work that we all did together over this past year, some of the things upcoming, and then leave a bit of time for questions. Okay, so yeah, probably just a reminder about Urban Matters, but we are the sister company of Urban Systems, so you're probably quite familiar with Urban Systems doing some of your engineering work. We are more of a traditional engineering and planning firm on the Urban Systems side, and then in 2014, Urban Matters was created as a social enterprise and as a community contribution company alongside our, I guess, you want to call it a parent company versus a sister company. That might be a little bit more accurate. But yeah, we saw the need in communities that we were working with, more so in the space of some complex challenges around housing and homelessness, mental health and substance use, things like food security, and a lot of different challenges that we were finding we weren't able to support traditionally through Urban Systems. So yeah, a lot of our Urban Matters team focuses more on the health and social planning aspects of things, which is a really great fit for the Community Health Plan Steering Committee. And so this is the project team. So like I said, I'm Julianne. I've had the pleasure and great fortune of working alongside the Community Health Plan Steering Committee for the past 5 years, so since 2021. And then we have Graham in the middle, who came on board 2 years ago. So he's been supporting, I'm sure this project was one of the first that he started with 2 years ago. And then we also have Sydney Elliott, who is also a community planner, who started just a year ago now. So all three of us are based in the Prince George office. And yeah, happy to be supporting this great work and the Community Health Plan Steering Committee. And work very closely alongside the NRM team there that supports this. So project background. So yeah, like I said, this is probably a bit of a kind of repeat history for you all, but just to remind you, in 2017, the the NRM Community Health Plan Steering Committee was created. It has always been a tripartite agreement, so an agreement between yourselves, the regional municipality, Northern Health, and Fort Nelson First Nation, each contributing a third of the budget to support the operation of the steering committee, bring community partners together at the steering committee table. The areas of focus originally from 2017 have been these 6 areas around recruiting and retaining healthcare providers, improving healthcare travel services, improving maternity care locally, increasing visiting health services, including virtual care, improving cancer care locally, and improving mental health and substance use services. So these were the 6 areas that the community and community partners would have been engaged on and agreed that should be the areas of focus of this committee. And since 2017, they have been kind of revisited every couple years, and they continue to be of high importance to the community partners that sit at the table, and as well as community members that have been engaged throughout the process as well. So at the beginning of last year, so we always do kind of some planning in the early phase of a new year of work, and so ask the group what the group wants to focus on, where we should be putting our efforts. And so the group had agreed at the beginning of last year to really focus on increasing efforts to recruit and retain healthcare providers. So focusing on growing our own, thinking about how we're engaging with high school students that might be wanting to get involved in healthcare, and really focus on that idea of trying to grow people who either have a connection here or grew up here, and then also improving health care travel services. So kind of continuing on from some of the work we had done the previous year around ensuring that there was access to non-emergency health travel services. And then we also wanted to continue focusing on increasing visiting health services and virtual care. So exploring those 3 areas. Plus, there had been a lot of conversation around the idea that community members still might not be completely clear on which services and kind of ailments they can get support from a medical clinic versus hospital visits, and especially knowing that pharmacies can now also prescribe different things for different ailments. So we had talked about in the beginning of the year that we really wanted to focus on a visual guide for those kind of teachings to the community, as well as researching into future funding opportunities. So knowing that, we have this core funding that each of the 3 groups put towards the steering committee, but that, it continually, as we grow, there needs to be more and more opportunity to support the great work that this group does. And then Urban Matters role. So we continue to do, our role has morphed a little bit over the last 5 years, but kind of our core role has always been to coordinate and facilitate the monthly committee meetings. So we have 10 a year. Over the last couple of years, we realized having the monthly meeting in July and August was a bit of a miss, because obviously people like to take vacations. So we've generally taken a bit of a break in the summer, but otherwise have had 10 meetings throughout the year. And that's usually the first Friday of every month. And so some of our work that we do outside of preparing agendas, facilitating the meetings, and preparing meeting minutes is kind of liaising and communicating with committee members between the meetings. So if we need certain information from certain folks, or if we need to link people up with certain work, we do that. There's some key strategic documents that the steering committee has. So things like a work program, a terms of reference, a committee member list, and then there's various ongoing work plan objectives, so different tasks and outputs that the group wants us to work on. And so we're continually developing those and distributing them and getting feedback, and then a lot of the more kind of visual developments with handouts and pamphlets to be able to communicate some of the pieces back to the community and back to community organizations, and then managing other tasks as are requested from our team. And so this past year would have been our 4th year, and so upcoming will be our 5th year, like I said, from 2021, supporting this great work. So yeah, it continues to be really valuable and important work for us personally. And, you know, I can see its impact and its positive work for the community. So some of the things that we talked about at our last steering committee meeting that, you know, us as a facilitating group and kind of project coordinator, but also in speaking with the NRM project team and others around the table, I think some of the real positives that have come out is that, again, we've got 10 meetings that we held. We really focused on some great work with those 3 main priorities of healthcare, travel services, growing our own, and increasing visiting healthcare services and virtual care. And then there was some focus as well on palliative care, which I'll talk about very soon when I talk about the specific project. But we also wanted, alongside the communication around what ailments and things you would go to for a pharmacy, medical clinic, or hospital, we also wanted to talk about what happens when people miss medical appointments and they don't kind of let their care providers know that they're missing the appointments, and what kind of impacts those have on the medical system. And like I said, we were able to really develop some strong key working documents that I'll share in a moment. And generally speaking, we have about 6 or 7 core members that are in regular attendance. There are 12 participating members in total on the committee. And so I think something that we continually want to strive for is to have more members in regular attendance, but and knowing that it is you know, a bunch of people who work in the community around healthcare and social agencies, and everyone's super busy. It's tricky to get kind of that full attendance. So some of the things that, yeah, we've been really successful in producing over the last year, and we can make sure that everyone has access to these documents if you'd like to see them after the presentation. So we've got some research and kind of information on increasing visiting health services and virtual care. That research was done towards the beginning of last year. It is a kind of ongoing working draft that is continually being added to, but it's you know, especially important for having that information at hand for the NRM being a rural community, and having making sure everyone has links to the virtual clinic. But knowing that most residents in the NRM have links to a family doctor, we've realized that the NH virtual clinic is a bit less accessible for folks locally. And then community palliative care guide. So I'd say that was one of the big wins from this past year. A couple committee members attended and shared that they didn't believe that there was enough palliative care information in the community that was readily accessible for community members. So everyone came together and we developed a summary of some of the local palliative care resources that are available locally in the NRM. And so we were able to create an online web version that currently lives on the NRM website. And then we also have a printed version of a pamphlet that is going to be available, and then is also linked to the online version through a QR code. So I would say that is a pretty big win and a really important document and set of resources that are now available to the community. Like I said, we developed some communications around what happens when folks miss appointments. And so this will be for each different medical facility: the Airport Way Medical Clinic, Fort Nelson Health Unit. For the hospital, there's also information for the chiropractic clinic and dental clinics. And so we're still figuring out exactly how we're going to communicate that forward and how that will look like for each clinic. But that was some important information that was collected. And then I think this one might be kind of hard for everyone to see, but essentially it's a visual roadmap that identifies where residents can go if they have concerns. So there's on the back page, you know, it basically says if it's an emergency, you're going to be going to the emergency room, but otherwise, where would you go if you had certain ailments? So people can kind of follow that roadmap with their various needs and what they need help with, and then showing which facilities to go to, whether it's a medical clinic, a pharmacy, virtual care, or like an 811, and what can or what can be accessed that way. So that's a very good visual document that can be used in the community. The reconvening of the harm reduction table. So this is a table that was formed and had kind of disbanded based on not having enough capacity and funding to be able to continue on. As always with committees and groups in the NRM, there's a lot of the same people that sit on this table as they do on the Community Health Plan Steering Committee. But we were able to get this harm reduction table up and running again with a convening grant from the Community Action Initiative, which is the organization that funds community action tables across the province to support community-led work in response to mental health and substance use issues in the community. And so this table is up and running and is also going to be applying for another $30,000 for continued meetings throughout 2026 to 2027. So again, a pretty big win from this last year's group and some of their efforts and some of the funding. So just to kind of close out some of these big pieces. So I think the opportunities and discussion for the future. So I think a big thing that we learned at the end of 2025, so there was a rural health dialogue that we held at the end of the year in 2025, and we were able to share a lot of the work that had been done over 2025 and looking into 2026. And what we found was that community members were quite pleased with what was happening with the steering committee, a lot of the initiatives that were kind of being brought to the table, and some of the conversations that were being had around visiting healthcare services, travel, healthcare travel. And so I think what we learned is that community members would like to know more about some of the great work that's being done and some of the resources, and being kind of led to those a little bit more frequently. And so I think that's something moving forward, is that we want to potentially have a little bit more check-in points and share backs with the community so that they know all the great work that's going on and can use the resources when they need to. I think, like I said, with the harm reduction table, trying to find some efficiencies between the two, knowing that a lot of the people that sit on one also sit on the other, and also knowing that there is limited funding for both. How do we create efficiencies between the two groups? And then we also found out from our last meeting that some of the folks in the room had felt that seniors' health, being such a big topic and kind of area that we want to support community members, seniors and elders specifically, are their needs represented with those 6 priority areas enough, or do we want to create a separate priority area? So that was something that was kind of being thrown around in the conversations for this next kind of year of programming. And then I think some of the things that we were thinking about around what we need to overcome for this next year is, like I said, just the regular and consistent attendance. It's super tricky. We know everyone's busy, and it can sometimes be hard to prioritize a monthly meeting. But I think when folks do attend and are able to share what's going on in their organization and learn what's going on throughout the community, and have input in some of the resources and documents being produced, I think everyone can agree that it's a really worthwhile use of time. And so I think it's just really trying to find kind of the ability for all organizations that sit at the table to have someone to attend more regularly. I think we also identify that this upcoming year, there's a pretty good chance that our budget will be reduced by a third because of one of the tripartite organizations not being able to potentially join. And so what does that mean for what's being done over the year? What are we going to prioritize on around like meetings and deliverables, and what we're able to do together? And then yeah, I think just with all the things going on throughout the community, how do we just continue to create the synergies between the different organizations and committees and tables to be able to do the good work of the community health plan and those 6 priority areas for the community. So I think those were the main things that I wanted to share with you today of just the great work that's been going on and the some of the great work to look forward to. But I definitely welcome any questions or comments, or if anyone from the NRM team like Diana or Julianne want to add anything.
Would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. No, not at this time, Julianne. Thank you very much. You did a great job.
Deputy Mayor Gerwing, I know you set this committee comments.
No, I don't have anything else to add. Thanks for the opportunity and good to see you, Julianne. Sorry, I had dental surgery, so I'm not talking so good today, but.
Julianne, thank you very much for the presentation. It's I know we've been talking about this committee through budget time, through, once we got the letter from the nation that they couldn't participate with respect to funding, it started us wondering about, well, what is the use of this committee if we can't have all the participants that we originally identified at the table helping us? But I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about your presentation as well. And I look at page 7 where it talks about the 6 areas of focus that this community came up with in 2017. It just shows again the forward thinking and the vision of folks in this community, because we know we're isolated. We know there's nobody coming to help us unless we help ourselves somehow. And one of the ways we do that is keeping ourselves informed, so that we're on. If you look at those 6, those are not just problems here anymore. These are problems provincial wide. Right, we were first to recognize it, really, like 2017. I'm sure there was others that were starting to feel it, but this community took action in 2017, and yeah, they might be for various reasons. People are not attending, but I think this committee is essential to moving forward in this community with respect to healthcare and understanding what's happening around us. It's, whether it's a dozen or whether it's 7 people and the contractor that's focusing on these issues that we've identified, almost 10 years ago as issues for us and eventually became provincial issues. Having a group like this focusing on these, even though we're not getting all the action we like to get, keeps us informed and gives us the ability to think about, well, what's next? What can we come up with next to try to help them, right? Look when the hospital went down, right? First time for us, right after Christmas. We worked together with the ambulance crews to come up with some decent ways of trying to keep the emergency room working and operating. That's provincial policy now, right? And all we did was think about it, but we had some basic understanding of how these things work. And I think this committee, and I hope you'd agree that this committee is key to that, Deputy Mayor Gerwing.
Yeah, so that I would like to add that Dr. Mostert attends most meetings, and something that we maybe didn't touch on today, but I think is of most value is the relationships that we build. So as the different health professionals come in, our new HSA or whatever, this is a table that they sit at, and we begin to start building relationships with them, and BC Emergency Health Services, which is how we were able to act so quickly, because we had already done the hard work of building those relationships with all those people in the community. So have we made as much forward motion on the 6 priorities that we would like? No, but I always tell myself, what would we look like today if we weren't doing the work that we're doing? So that keeps me coming to the table at 8 a.m. on Friday. Yeah.
Well, and if I may, I think I've said this from the start. I think it also just it signals like leadership and accountability. As a local government, like it's not necessarily your purview or your jurisdiction to focus on healthcare, but you choose to do that and you choose to show up for your residents. And I think that's, I don't know, continues to be a unique and special thing that you don't see a lot. And I think, you know, to the point of, yes, like we're rural and we're remote, so like there is maybe more of a need, but I think, you know, the fact that you don't have to and you choose to is just a very, I don't know, great leadership in kind of healthcare for your residents that I've always really admired through this committee and through this project.
Thanks, Julianne. So for one, I'm certainly committed to seeing it move forward and to work with the nation to see if you know, if there's a way to get them, you know, back funding. I mean, they're not away from the table, you know, it's just they haven't found a way to fund it. And if we can help them figure that out, then you know, hopefully we won't have to change too much. But yeah. So anybody else have any comments or questions for Julianne? Julianne, thanks very much for your time tonight and for pulling this together for us.
Of course, my pleasure. Nice to see everyone. Thanks again.
Nice to see you again.
Take care.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. It's 10 after and there's at least 3 more agenda items. I'm looking to the staff who are going to present these. Can you stay? I'm thinking about adding these to the regular agenda. If there's nobody that can stay, then we'll try to deal with it. For anybody? You guys are good to stay? Okay. So if everybody's okay, we'll stop and we'll take a meal break and we'll move these 3 items to the regular agenda and deal with them during the regular agenda. Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.